Sandoval County, but on all of Turtle Island and elsewhere. And our young people from the Dene Pueblo Youth Solidarity Alliance are the ones that put this Speak Out together. And just to give you some information, right now we're doing a Speak Out and rally at 4 p.m. Doors open for the meeting at 6 p.m. So you have to sit. If you want to give a statement and you want to sit through the meeting with the county commissioners, you're going to have to sit from 4 to 6 p.m. and you can't leave. And if you leave, you can't get back in. And that's a way to deter dissent. So they already know we're here. We're going to make some noise here pretty soon. But I just want to give you guys an update about what's going on. Not here specifically in fracking. My sister Jen Marley will give you an update. But as you know, 2 million acres of Bears Ears National Monument was recently opened up for privatization under Trump. And we know that the Alaskan Arctic Wildlife Refuge is now under threat after the new tax bill that was passed by the Republican Congress. But I want to take a step back and not just think about this in partisan politics. Because if we look at the Obama administration in 2010, when he initiated his 2010 National Economic Recovery Plan, he increased domestic oil production by 80% to drill the U.S. economy out of the national recession at the expense of indigenous peoples. Why do you think Dakota Access Pipeline went through with little resistance from the Obama administration? Obama is a coward for not stopping the Dakota Access Pipeline, but he's also a coward for not granting clemency to Native political prisoner Leonard Peltier. So this is not about Democrats versus Republicans. This is about indigenous liberation, which includes the liberation not just of our human relatives, but our non-human relatives as well. Consultation is not consent. Just because we're here today does not mean that we're consenting to this process that we did not initiate ourselves. Nobody invited frackers and oil and gas people here except for the commissioners and the business people. We're the humble people of the earth, and we're the ones that are going to protect it. We're not scared. They're scared. There's all these police lined up around here. When we came in, we were just sitting out here in the entryway, and one of the county sheriff's department guys came in and asked us what we're doing. This is a public building, and that's the way we're treated. Indigenous people are treated on their own lands.
This is Pueblo land.
And this is Pueblo land right here. You know, technically I'm an outsider, I'm Lakota, but but we're loud, right? And I want to thank all of you for being out here. This just isn't just a Native issue, because this is everyone's issue. And it's not just about green capitalism, how we can, frack more nicer. This is about ending that entire process entirely. It's because of capitalism, a man-made system, that we have global climate change. We can't call the California wildfires natural disasters if it's because of climate change, because climate change is not a natural disaster. That is a man-made disaster. The hurricane that affected Puerto Rico, that too was not a natural disaster. Two hurricanes, excuse me, thank you, that decimated Puerto Rico, that was not a natural disaster. Those are amplified by changing weather patterns caused by the emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Global warming is not a debate. Fracking increases the consumptions of fossil fuels. Everybody knows this. These aren't things that you go in to county commissioner hearings and debate people on. You don't debate people on the future of the planet. That's not debatable. We don't concede. We don't consult on that. That's a demand. That's a fundamental human right. No matter who you are, no matter the color of your skin, that's a fundamental human right to have a future on this planet, not just for us, but also for our non-human relations. So I want you guys to remember that when we go in there today. This is not, consultation does not mean consent. We said no, we will always say no. But until they push us to do other things, to put our bodies on the line, we're willing to go there. We don't have anything to fear from them. they're the ones that are afraid. The guns and money people will always be afraid of the poor people of the earth. And we're here to remind them that this is our land, and that for our children and the future generations to live, this is the only thing left for us to do. And this isn't a duty, it's our privilege and our honor to stand up for Mother Earth. We are not afraid. Look around you, you have relatives. The whole world is watching. So with that, I want to turn it over to my Pueblo sister, Jen Marley, and we'll get this kicking off.
I am a Tewa woman. I also have my matrilineal line in Zia Pueblo. I just like to acknowledge this as the land of the surrounding Carrots Pueblo, Tamaya, Zia, Kiwa. Thank you all for joining us today. I must admit that I have yet to be extremely aware of the very intricate details of what exactly is happening, because the process that's taking place is actually meant to be confusing. It's difficult to keep up with. I'm sure all of you have heard protect Chaco Canyon, stop fracking. But what's happening is very intentional confusion on the part of Sandoval County Commission, the Bureau of Land Management, and the federal government under the Zinke and Trump administration. So what we are calling for today is to demand a moratorium on fracking in the greater Chaco landscape. This is what tribal leaders are demanding, because as Nick said, consultation does not mean consent. What happens during these meetings is they're little more than pony shows. The tribal leaders are called in, Native people are called in, and they say, here's what we're doing. We're going to parcel out your land, and we're going to decimate it. They tell them this, there's contestation, we come out here, there's pushback, but it goes through anyway. So what we're calling for is to demand that Sandoval County's Southern Ordinance be tabled pending environmental impact statements and tribal consent. So with this, this can push back any new leases in the greater Chaco landscape for at least another 2 years, which is the length of time it'll take for an environmental impact statement to be finished. However, that being said, it's very obvious that this is going to be a continuing struggle. Right now, in the meantime, within the political realm, all we can do is gather to make it clear that we want this moratorium, and not only that, but for all of this data regarding the impact it's going to have on the earth, the water, the air, and the people to be put out and made public. However, this is going to be an ongoing struggle. This has been an ongoing struggle. This is not new. New Mexico has long generated the majority of its income on gas and oil development. That's really at the founding of this state. Last time one of these meetings took place, they bussed in students from New Mexico Tech. New Mexico Tech has been an institution that run these oil and gas development projects. These students came to speak in favor of gas and oil drilling. They're not from this area. They're not from the greater Chaco Canyon region. They are not like the Dene relatives suffering from cancer and poor air quality, where they suffer the brunt of that trauma. So having these people with their supposed scientific knowledge coming in and speaking on behalf of them doesn't mean anything. And if they're such great scientists, I don't understand how they can advocate in favor of fracking. That's because it's not really about science, it's not about education. That institution is there to produce people to keep these projects going here in the state of New Mexico. You also hear that, well, if there's no gas and oil drilling, what's going to happen to our education? Because a huge majority of the education budget in New Mexico is funded by gas and oil money. It's also funded by gaming from tribal communities. In New Mexico, Native communities are literally milked for their capital. All of the wealth is siphoned from Native communities to support the state as a whole. Meanwhile, Native people make up only under 20% of the population in New Mexico, and continue to suffer from the highest rates of poverty and incarceration. So, as this struggle continues, keep that in mind. Keep in mind that this is something that has always happened. This is something that New Mexico will not give up easily on. It's going to take more continued resistance like this, us coming together, not just at these meetings, but at Bureau of Land Management meetings. In January, there will be an action at the Bureau of Land Management office in Farmington, because that is the office that oversees gas and oil development projects in the greater Chaco Canyon region. We ask that you join us for this, because that is where these leases will be. It will be decided whether or not these lands are leased. They continue to be parceled up and sold to foreign companies. We also ask that you keep in mind the suffering of the people who live in that region directly. Despite the call from tribal leaders to put in place a 10-mile buffer zone around the greater Chaco Canyon region that has already been violated, there are oil wells and flares within the greater Chaco Canyon landscape, within that 10-mile buffer zone. If you visit the monument, they are visible. You can see those flares. And not just that, they're horizontal. It's horizontal fracking, which means it's inserted into the ground in one place, but it can extend in 6 different directions for miles. So what that means is that this infrastructure is already beneath the ruins directly. And what's happening under there is that that's how this oil is being extracted. These chemicals and water are being pushed into the earth, and that's what causes these earthquakes that you see in Oklahoma and Wyoming and other places where fracking is rapid. So our sacred areas are already at risk. This isn't something that is on the rise. This is something that's been happening. It's something that's been in place. So please continue to come out to this. Have these conversations with your family. Have these conversations with your tribal leaders. It's uncomfortable and it's difficult, but it's the reality that we're faced with. And it's the reality that our ancestors lived as well. And it's the reality that our descendants for generations to come will have to take up. Thank you everybody for being here today.